are alive and well in many ways, and that's not going away.
This is the North American Service broadcasting on 17.70, 15.42, 12.05.
Now you will worship her together.
What have you done to its eyes?
You be the person sitting by the other voice.
The next time you're frightened in the dark, don't scream.
They are not what they claim to be. You're listening to Radio.
It's November. It's November.
Yep.
It's November. It's November.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Next week is Thanksgiving.
Oh.
We figured that out. And then I had to text my boyfriend because he's going to send me money because he's so nice. And it's part 3 of the Sasquatch series. Welcome back to Radio Grave. I'm here with Dom.
I'm here with Amber.
And we're here. It's Indigenous Heritage Month.
Still, baby.
It's Indigenous Heritage Month every month.
True.
But we got to specifically do it in November because it pisses off the fucking conservatives.
Yes.
They're like, Thanksgiving is for thanks. And it's like, no thanks.
For what, bitch?
No thanks. Actually, Thanksgiving is for my birthday. I mean, November. Okay. No, it's not.
We established when it is, though.
Fuck.
It was like episode 1
Fuck.
of the mini-series. That's okay.
How about you stop?
All right, I'm sorry. Sorry about
Of this mini series. It is a huge series.
It's a 4-part.
Sasquatch part 3.
It's a quadrit.
It's a quadruple. This is our first quad of this season. We have another quad coming. Quad. I might be able to break it down to 3. Probably not.
Nah.
Too much ghost.
Make it lots.
Make it so much. Anyways, we have covered so much in the first 2 weeks of this month. We introduced you to stick Indians and giants and ogres from Southern California all the way to British Columbia. In California, we talked about Mayak Datat and Painted Rock. We talked about the oral history of the Yoka and the Tule River Indians and the legend of Hairy Man and the Tipnis Shamans. In Nevada, we told the Northern Paiute story of the Numatakutta as told by Sarah Winnemucca and the history of the Lovelock Cave and its mummy giants. We went to Oregon and we briefly spoke of the Yehuskin Paiute Si Ka, the Dark Watchers and Forest Keepers.
Love those guys.
And we read some awesome Sasquatch encounter stories, all told by Native American men and women from all over Oregon, and one gentleman from Northern California. So the Karuk Klamath, Cayuse Umatilla, and the Wasco Warm Springs. Finally, we have made it all the way up back to Washington and British Columbia, which is the birthplace of Sasquatch, the name.
Okay.
And before we get into this final chapter, we'll be getting much deeper. We'll be going much deeper than the others because we're heading into ground zero of Sasquatch. So strap in, strap on, your strap in, strap in your strap on.
Okay.
And don't be afraid.
I'm scared. Because you prefaced it like that, I am afraid.
I know. I apologize, but let's just strap in and get ready. Let's do some refreshers on Sasquatch in general. Can you do that for me? Can you tell me about him?
Absolutely. I'm his best friend.
I know.
No one knows him better than me. We hang out.
You guys have known
week.
each other since you were babies.
Yeah, we used to stand on other sides of a porch door and jump. We jump together.
We jump together.
Me and my friend jump. So, these are some behaviors of Sasquatch. These are some behaviors of Sasquatch. Oh my God. So these are some behaviors of the Sasquatch that we've talked about already. In general, they're not considered to be an animal or a human, but something other, whether that's spiritual, otherworldly, another species, something other.
Right.
Sometimes referred to as other Indians or another tribe of people. They all have their own names, which differ from region to region. They sometimes lived alongside Indigenous people for a long time or even before Indigenous people. They appear in some creation stories. They're both described as being spiritual and physical beings. They live in isolation, usually in the hills and mountains. Some common physical features and abilities of Sasquatch are things like hairiness. They're very large and they always have human features. Most of the time they smell terrible, awful, absolutely ass. They can mimic voices and sounds. They're masters of camouflage. They exhibit extreme strength, agility, endurance, powerful leg muscles, very handsome calves.
So far
very
running.
ripped, running so fast.
Huge legs.
Oh, yes.
Arms, long arms.
Long arms.
Long hanging arms.
And they are known to wield inhuman abilities or spiritual powers. As for their behavioral characteristics and abilities, the behavior tends to be very human-like, emotional, social. They're said to be capable of speech. They can speak their own languages and indigenous languages. They live in groups or sometimes tribes. They interact with indigenous people, but on a spectrum of interaction, like the level. They're thieves, as a very common detail. Sorry to, it's not a stereotype. They're stealing.
They do be
stealing.
stealing. They steal everything.
And they watch. They observe in secret. The rest of this episode is going to be straight from the source. These are true stories told by indigenous people of the Pacific Northwest, some dating as early as, the beginning of European contact. So with that, we'll jump into it. Oh my God. So with that, let's jump right into it, beginning first in Washington State.
Washington State. Washington State. So let's talk about this guy named Ed Fox.
He fucks.
I think it's Fuchs, but I don't know.
Nah, dude, he fucks.
His name is Ed Fox. So throughout the 1980s and into the early 1990s, there was a man named Dr. Ed Fox. I really just want to call him Ed Fox. Can I?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
That's how it's it's Fuchs. So it could be like Fuchs or maybe Fuke.
I'm sure
Fuchs,
it's Fuchs.
But it looks like fucks, so
Yeah.
he fucks, dude.
Or it's Futch. Futches.
Fuchs.
Fooch.
Fuchs.
Dr. Ed Fox.
Yeah.
I'll just say Fuchs. Fuck it. I want to be profesh.
Fuke it, dude.
Love it. So Dr. Ed Fuchs, a geologist with an interest in the indigenous Sasquatch, spent years in Washington State researching and writing about the existence and significance of the Pacific Northwest Sasquatch. And his time in Washington was focused between two reservations, spending time with over a dozen tribes from the Confederated Tribes of the Colvilles, as well as the Spokane Tribe. Eventually, he released his 1992 publication, Chwaniti and the Stick Indians of the Colvilles. His research is modern compared to others we have and straightforward. When I say modern, it's not from a newspaper in 1920
Yeah.
saying some racist ass shit.
Yeah. It's within our lifetime.
Yeah. He's very boots on the ground, obviously. He interviewed several Native American informants. He calls them informants, but really, I think he just means that they're anonymous people to protect their identities. And some of these anonymous people told their own stories, as well as other people's stories who were not willing to tell themselves. And his work generally lacks sensationalism, I think, which is something that I like.
Yeah.
So these stories focus on cultural significance of Sasquatch, testimonies of personal encounters, and individuals' family lore and history.
So to the Wenatchee tribe, Sasquatch were known as the Chowanito, and they were just another tribe of natives. Chowanito means night people.
Nocturnal.
Dark watchers? The Wenatchee and other surrounding tribes said the Chowanito were nocturnal, and they hunted at night. The Wenatchee could see their hunting parties after dark. Lights could be seen... Oh, for some reason I thought that was saying like the Bigfoot could see in the dark. What the fuck? The Wenatchee could see their hunting parties after dark. Lights could be seen moving across the mountains, especially along Keller Butte. They believed this was Chowanito with torches. It was common knowledge to stay out of the forest after dusk. You did not want to run into a Chowanito hunting party.
Negative.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
The Chowanito were large and hairy with human faces, strong, elusive, and fast. They were skilled hunters. They also wielded inhuman abilities. They were very interactive with the natives. Like they were mischievous, and they stole food.
They were hella mischievous.
They loved mischief. One recent story from 1984 tells of 2 women being pranked by the Chowanito, those little pranksters. A white woman who married onto the reservation, and her native mother-in-law were the victims. One day, they dug camas root together.
Camas root?
Camas?
Camas roots?
One day, they dug camas roots together and placed them in a basket and set them on the roof away from animals. And that night, the mother-in-law heard a Chowanito on the roof.
He's all, I smell roots up here.
Hey, I'm a Chowanito. Do you have roots?
He said, I'm here to steal.
I smell roots. I think I'm going to take them. Is that okay? And they don't say anything.
They're like,
oh my God.
Don't open the door. I have a gun.
Yeah, it's 1984, so probably. Anyway, so they hear him on the roof. The next day, the camas roots were gone, and their puppy was stranded on top of the roof. They took the puppy and they put him up there. That's silly. That's mischievous, and it's also not very nice. Unfortunately, the Chowanito didn't just steal camas roots. They were no strangers to abducting women and children, and if they were able, they also abducted men. Bisexual. According to a publication by Dr. Ed Fuchs, 100-year-old Wenatchee elder named Isabel told a story about the Chowanito. It was passed down from her great-grandfather through oral tradition. The specific year is unknown, but it is most likely pre-1850. The story goes, a group of Wenatchee men went on a hunting trip near Wenatchee Lake one autumn day. One of the men ended up separated and possibly lost. While in solitude, he was approached and taken away by a Chowanito man. He claimed he was taken to a cave in the Rocky Mountains. The smell in the cave was unbearable and made him physically sick.
Blah, 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 blah.
Oh, all in that Sasquatch fur, too.
Ugh, it's so fucking gross.
Well, I mean, because he's puking on him. That's what I'm saying. He's puking into fur.
Is he just holding him in the cave?
Maybe. For some reason, I thought they were I imagine them walking into the cave, and
He's
he gets in there and he's like, "Bleh!"
I would think
puking
so.
down the side of him.
That makes sense.
Which is rude. I mean, it's rude to kidnap, but it's also rude to throw up in
He
someone's
smells
home
like
on
shit.
them.
Can't help it.
So he went into the gross, smelly cave, and he was held captive by a family of Chowanito all throughout the winter. He was forced to stay in the cave at all times with the Chowanito woman. He described them as living a life similar to the Wenatchee, saying they were just like another tribe of Indians. The following spring, the Chowanito let him go. The whole village was shocked when he returned alive. He was also in good shape. He told everyone the Chowanito took good care of him. He was fed and clothed the entire time he was captive. He was not harmed, but was taken against his will, for reasons we can only speculate.
Let's move to the Lakes Band of the Colville Confederation. They had something similar to the Chowanito, but they knew him as the Sts'ailes, a name derived from the word Squanetex, which means stick Indian.
We know them.
Yeah, we know them. So the Sts'ailes are like the others. They're referred to as just another tribe that were, quote, different. They were big and hairy and strong and wielded special abilities. And specifically one of these more unique abilities was that they were able to turn into trees.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So that was what kind of set them apart. This comes from a Lakes Band story. A hunting party of native men pursued a group of Sts'ailes for reasons unknown. The men forced the Sts'ailes into a steep ravine, latrine.
Latrine again?
Yeah.
No, it's just a ravine.
And at the bottom of the ravine was a creek. The party was vigilant from above with a clear vantage point. And they knew the Sts'ailes were at the bottom, but they weren't coming out. A few of the hunters went down the ravine to search. All they found was a group of trees. The hunters decided to leave the trees alone.
So were there not trees there before?
I guess not.
Right.
It didn't make sense, I guess.
Yeah, they're like, why is there just trees?
Yeah.
They were supposed to be Sts'ailes.
They were like, I think those are Sts'ailes.
We're just gonna go.
Right. So it's remembered to this day that the Sts'ailes are one with the trees. And the Sts'ailes' special abilities are not the only thing that set them apart. They were known to be less mischievous and more aggressive. They were said to be dangerous and deceptive and vengeful as well. Their howls and screams were distinct and recognizable and heard quite often. They were well known to abduct women and children, so women and children were not to be left alone ever, because they did not know where the Scanacum was hiding in the trees.
Or if they were the trees, for
Or if
fuck's
they
sake.
were the trees, yeah.
For fuke's sake.
For fuke's sake. So in a later segment, we'll be speaking more about Scanacum abduction stories.
But for now, we travel a little north, partially into British Columbia. The Central Washington, British Columbia Spokane tribe called them the Chwaniti, which translates to tall, hairy, and smells like burnt hair. Apt.
Ass. They smell like butt. Crack.
Makes sense. They were taller than others. They were 9 to 10 feet tall, very hairy with human faces, and they had a very strong odor of wet, burnt hair. Allegedly, the Chwaniti is the stinkiest of them all.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it. That sounds foul.
Yeah.
Like the others, the Spokane tribe saw the Chwaniti as just another tribe of people. However, they accepted the fact that they were simply a part of this environment. They denounced them as being animals in every way, and they very rarely encountered them for most of the year. It's believed that the land where the Spokane Reservation is located was originally the Chwaniti's summer habitat. Thus, the locals dealt with the Chwaniti's mischief in the summer. His favorite food was fish, surprise, but especially smoked fish.
I'm not surprised.
I'm not surprised. I fucking love smoked fish. Are you kidding me?
Are you kidding me?
That sounds so good. Some smoked salmon right now.
Fukin' fish.
What the fuke? I want some fuking fish, dude.
Let's go get some fukin' fish, actually, for dinner.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
So yeah, they would just steal fish all the time, which is rude.
Fucking rude.
We've kind of established that they're just gonna steal fish.
Literally.
Manners aside, decorum aside, they're gonna steal fish. So the Spokane offered smoked fish heads, tails, organs, other unwanted parts for the Chwaniti. In turn, the Spokane people's dogs, horses, and food supplies would be left alone. So they're like, here's some treatables, here's some yummies. Please don't put my dog on the roof. Please don't take my dog.
Yeah. Don't take my horse.
Please leave my horse where it is.
Don't take my fish. Like, here's some food. Like,
yeah,
we need that.
The Spokane never attempted to catch or shoot him. One story from before the turn of the century tells of a time that this was attempted. It was salmon harvesting season. Salmon. Let's think about salmon. 6 Spokane women were on the river near Keller, Washington. A few of them found Chwaniti sleeping along a nearby creek. He was in a deep sleep and wasn't roused by the women nearby. They didn't want their fish to get stolen, so they decided to tie him up. I don't know about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, what? Just leave. I don't know.
Take your fish, dude. They drove stakes into the ground around his body and laced rope over him.
He's really sleeping.
Yeah, dude, he's sleeping hard. He's like, I already ate so much fish, and I was up all night putting dogs on the roof. Like,
I'm nocturnal.
Tired. Yeah,
they're like
my sleepy time.
They're like,
yeah,
putting down stakes.
Gulliver's Travel ass shit.
It literally is the story of Gulliver.
But he woke up, and all 6 women sat on top of him to keep him down. He paid no attention to them and rose to his feet effortlessly. He's big and he's strong. Duh.
He's all,
yo, what the fuck? And he stands up and they're like, falling off of him. And they were covered in the broken ropes. They're all tangled up. It's like Looney Tunes up in here.
Literally.
And then he turned and stomped away without a care in the world.
He's like, I gotta find somewhere else to fucking sleep now.
It's like, people are fucking trying to tie me up while I'm sleeping, dude.
Literally.
And then all 6 women had to burn their clothes because they were stinky. Which I love. It's like, good, dude. Don't go near him, man.
So what do you learn from this?
Don't go near him.
Yeah.
Let the man sleep.
Right.
Don't try to catch him was the lesson. The Spokane were not a match for him. It was not going to happen.
They're like, we have 6 women to one Chwaniti.
One tied up Chwaniti. Yeah, they knew to give him a wide berth and leave peace offerings to him, especially his favorite foods, so meat. Interestingly, some sources claim the Spokane had compared Chwaniti to the biblical Cain from the legend of Cain and Abel. One story from the 1900s, for example, 4 hunters of the Spokane tribe and 2 dogs embarked on their annual autumn hunting trip. They arrived at their hunting camp and settled in. That night, they heard loud wailing from the woods, like the strange crying of a man. The man drew near, and one of the woman hunters confronted him.
Also, crying man, like hairy man?
Like the hairy man pictograph?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. He's like, oh, no one likes me, no one likes me.
Could you imagine? He's like, oh no.
Oh, I feel bad for him. I'm like, okay, buddy, it's okay.
Wait,
Have some fish.
have you ever seen those stupid Alaska hunting Bigfoot shows?
No, you've told me about him.
Like, me and Zach tried to watch one where it was like they're in an abandoned like barn somewhere in Alaska, and they're like, oh, "What was that? We heard a Sasquatch outside of our house last night." He was going,
For real?
That's what we were like making. No, that's
Okay.
what they're
I was
like.
like,
He was making Sasquatch sounds like, oh yeah, oh my god, harder. Holy fuck. Anyway,
That's gotta be a Sasquatch, dude.
isn't that funny? Oh my god.
So,
He's in the woods. He's going, I know.
oh my god. So, yeah, he drew near, he's crying, and one of the woman hunters comforted him, and she said, why are you terrifying us
I don't
this
think
way?
she's comforting him.
It says on your paper.
Confronted him.
I can't fucking read. Freudian slip. I would comfort the crying Sasquatch. So the man drew near, and one of the woman hunters confronted him. She was quoted to say, why are you terrifying us this way? We know who you are. We know you are Chert. Chert is the Spokane name for Cain. She said, there will be no end to your wandering. That is your punishment for the sin you committed. Go. Turn yourself away. Get away. You are Chert. And Chert's crying receded back into the mountain. Hunters figured this Trinity would do them no harm. But, if not confronted, he might have stayed all night long.
So annoying.
Crying. Whining. And they're like, no, you deserve this. Chert. Chert. Shut up, Chert. And he's just crying.
And then he goes back into
Get
the
out of
mountains.
here.
They're all, get the fuck out of here. The dogs are barking like they can't like get any rest.
Because there's a crying Chert.
They're like, fuck this. She's like, get the fuck out of here.
Chert, you deserve this. Get out of here.
Your punishment is to wander, so go wander somewhere else.
He's like, okay.
Literally. He's like, I'm hungry.
No meat for you. Get out of here.
Literally.
Feel bad for that Chert. So yeah, better safe than sorry was always the attitude, but that doesn't mean there hadn't been times when the mischief was far more violent. This story happened around 1910, passed down over the course of 2 or 3 generations. A family of 3, it was a father, a mother, and a 12-year-old son, and the 12-year-old son was the grandfather of who told the story. This family lived on the reservation. The father worked at Fort Spokane Outpost in law enforcement. The outpost was 20 miles away from the reservation across the Spokane River. They lived on their own small patch of land in a log cabin. It was in a somewhat wooded area, but it wasn't entirely isolated, with a very tall fence perimeter. They had a lean-to style barn with split double doors, and they owned 1 horse and a dog. And the dog was the horse's companion as well. The family received government commodities living on the reservation. So this included large cans of smoked salmon. Thus, canned fish was a staple in their diet. Empty cans were stored in the barn, and there were dozens stored in the barn. One day, the mother returned home on horseback. She staked the horse up on the hill about 200 feet from the house. And that night, the dog and horse stayed together up on the hill. The family ate dinner and then went to bed. And that night, they had a run-in with the Trinity. Family woke up to strange sounds. What does that sound?
Chert.
Jerk, get the fuck off my property. He's like, please, I'm so
You're like,
hungry.
what?
What the fuck? But the horse was stampeding around the stake in circles, like snorting, wheezing, blowing, crying out in distress. He's freaking out. He's
Like,
losing his shit.
Oh God. Is that what a horse sounds like?
Like that? Yeah. They go, whoa. Go. Horses go, ah, 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 ah,
Yeah.
help me.
Literally.
Jerks outside. But they couldn't hear the dog. They heard the horse freaking out, but they couldn't hear the dog. So they went to investigate. And upon opening the door, they shut it immediately because there was a foul stench that totally overpowered them and bowled them over. They recognized the smell was from Chouiniti, and he was outside their house fucking with their horse. But they were too afraid to scare him off. He was better left alone. But they heard the horse break free from the stake, and it was running past the front door and into the night. The next morning, the family searched for the horse. They walked all around the property, inside and outside the fence. The fence was intact, and it was too tall for the horse to jump. The horse and the dog were nowhere to be found. Later, the mother went to the barn, and upon opening both doors at the same time, that foul smell hit her again. But along with the stench came the horse. The horse wildly stampeded from the barn, nearly trampling her. And old tin cans went flying everywhere in total chaos. Total hurricane, old tin cans, horse flying out. She saw that the horse's eyes were rolled back in its head. He's all crazy. Full speed, the horse charged towards the fence. He busted straight through the tall fence, full blown. He
Fucking
just
freaking
ran
out.
through it.
Yeah.
The family rushed outside due to the commotion. All three watched the horse throw itself over the outer fence. It unnaturally and violently twisted around in the air. According to the family, it appeared the horse had been thrown by an invisible force. When it landed, it laid still on the ground, and it was obvious that it had literally dropped dead.
Literally.
It literally fell and died.
It literally did.
They ran to the horse, but they couldn't get close because it smelled so bad. However, they were close enough to see that all 4 hooves of the horse had been lodged into old salmon cans.
I don't know if we ever talked about this, or if we haven't yet, might as well mention it, is that, like, spiritually, it's kind of said that they can hypnotize. Like, they have
I didn't know that.
Yeah, like with the hunting with like the animals, like breaking their necks and stuff. Like, it's said that that's how they like hunt, is they like hypnotize and then they kill.
That's cool.
Yeah. So it's like the horse is in there hypnotized.
And then the door opens and he's like, "Wah!"
Yeah. And he had put, the Chouiniti put fucking cans on his feet,
So he couldn't run good.
which is disgusting and weird and like cruel.
Yeah.
Is it not?
The Chouinitis were like, "Oh, funny joke." And they're like, "No, dude.
Yeah, it's fucking
That's not
weird.
cool. Now the horse is dead."
Yeah. He really do be like out here like being kind of fucking like rude. Like, what did they do?
They had a horse.
Yeah, literally.
That's all they did.
Yeah, literally.
That day, multiple giant, quote, human footprints, so I mean, they looked human, were discovered. Found all around the inside and outside of the property, outside the barn, house, along the fence. Curiously, footprints were found surrounding the dead horse. They measured lengthwise the palm of the father's hand to the back of his elbow. So pretty fucking long.
Fucking huge.
Yeah.
Fucking huge.
And the stench of Chouiniti lingered in the barn for several days, and the family's dog never came back.
Do you think the dog died?
Probably. He probably fucking threw it in the water or something stupid.
Maybe.
Many years later, the cabin burned down and the family moved away. Decades after that, a trailer home was built upon its foundation. A native couple moved in, and the husband was absent for a long time. He was overseas fighting in the war, thus his wife was home alone. On several occasions, she experienced knocking on the upper windows. The bottom of the windows were nearly 9 to 10 feet above the ground. The bottom of the windows.
Yeah.
This woman was positive that the knocking was from Chouiniti, but she was never afraid. She was always told growing up that he'd never harm her. So
Yeah. I mean, he didn't seem like he harmed the people, but he did fucking seriously
yeah, if you don't have any pets,
did a cruel, like that. I think
maybe
that's what
he
bothered.
learned after that. I mean,
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. That's like what bothered me the most about that story is it just seemed so unusually cruel.
I think it sounds like someone who doesn't have a humanized sense of humor. You know, on like a base instinct level, like, haha, funny horse, put the foot in the thing, haha. He can't walk. You know.
True.
And
like
but
animals are animals.
Yeah, but then there were footprints around the horse as well. So he might have come up and been like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
I killed the horse and they just left it. Oh, I guess it's not funny. Sorry.
How did it jump over the fence like that?
Maybe he threw it.
Do you think
If he was invisible, because we don't know what they can do. If you enjoy our podcast, please rate, review, and consider becoming a patron by visiting patreon.com/radiograve. Your patronage and support helps us continue to make content for you. You can stay up to date with us by following our Instagram account at Radio Grave Podcast, and be sure to tell all your spooky friends about us too. Thanks for listening. Now back to the show. After the construction of the Great Coulee Dam, Chwenidi sightings happened in sequence for several years. One story tells of a native family's salmon being stolen 2 nights in a row.
What the fuck, dude?
After the theft, the adults woke to thuds on the roof. It was the sound of Chwenidi tossing stones at their house. The stones weren't thrown hard, but they were tossed to be annoying and make noise.
Yeah, literally.
Like, it wasn't to, like, break things. It was just, like gently tossing a rock so it goes bonk, and then they're like, what the fuck,
He's
Chwenidi?
literally sitting up in the fucking, like, rocks or wherever in the trees, like, eating
their fish that he stole.
And he's like, thunk, thunk.
Fuck you guys. And they're like, dude, please.
There's Chwenidi outside. Oh, wait. It's a Chwenidi farm. There's gotta be Chwenidi outside.
Oh my god. The next morning, after the second night of missing fish, the family found dozens of stones all around their house, and their horse was missing. He had been staked next to the creek, and the stake was missing too. The horse was found very far down the creek, up on a hill, and the horse was hanging out eating grass, still roped to the stake, but the stake was planted as well.
Yeah. He literally, like, just picked up he, like, pulled the stake out.
Led the horse somewhere else and staked him again.
Like a fun.
Like, you're rude. The horse was unharmed, but he smelled like Chwenidi, and he smelled like shit for over a week, and no one could ride him. And it was, again, concluded the horse has been hypnotized, but, like, at least he's alive.
Yeah.
Like,
He's
better smelling like shit.
He fucking stinks.
And eating grass.
Then be dead.
Yeah.
And
it's like,
smell like shit.
At least they found him and he's alive. He's stinky, but it's okay.
Yeah.
After a week, it was fine. Another story tells of a 50-year-old native man sitting in his truck one night. He was suddenly disturbed by a knock on his passenger window. When he turned and looked, there was a Chwenidi in his window, and it had white hair, and it was pressing his huge face on the glass.
I imagine, like, the gremlin on the fucking airplane wing from Twilight Zone.
On the wing.
There's something, and it's like a fucking Sasquatch. It's a fucking Chwenidi.
Yeah, the man screamed and drove away really fast.
Could you imagine that? He's all has his face up against
No, I wouldn't like to see that, I think. Where
Well,
he's like, yo, what are you doing, old man? The fuck?
Well, in the same story, he said that he could see that it was bending over. I just didn't
so he
think,
knew it was tall.
It just didn't. Yeah, it just didn't seem like.
Yeah.
He was in his truck and it was still bending over to put its face on the fucking window.
He big.
Yeah. I think that the things that we just, like the fish and the stones and just the moving, like, that's some mischievous fucking rude ass shit. Like, he's like, oh, I see like an old man sitting in that truck. I'm going to go push my face up against the window to scare him.
Knock and freak him out.
Yeah, it's like purposeful. So, welcome to British Columbia.
Oh, thank you.
We're going north, farther north. We were kind of in there, but now we're really there.
Okay.
And the Salish, Clallam, and Quinault tribe of the northwest Puget Sound called these hairy men the Sts'ailes. The Sts'ailes, known to be called the Siatico by outsiders, were considered to be just another tribe of people. George Totsky, the Clallam tribe editor of the weekly national publication The Real American, would denounce the claims of apes who attacked prospectors at Mount St. Helens in 1924. He'd say, the mountain devils discovered at Mount St. Helens near Kelso are none other than the Sts'ailes tribe, whom every Indian in the Northwest is familiar. What were the Sts'ailes? So according to the Clallam, they were large, like 7-8 feet tall. They were very hairy people, like a bear, with human faces. That's how they describe them. They lived in the caves of the Olympic mountain range, mainly at Mount St. Helens. They also lived in the deep, undisturbed Vancouver Island wilderness. They left the mountains only once a year in the autumn and fall to catch fish.
Love the fish.
Love
They
the fish.
love the fish. Same.
The Klallam and nearby Quinault tribe said the Sts'ailes would encroach on their tribe's fishing areas, and they'd steal their daily catches and dried salmon. Just like the story from last episode, the guy from the Kuruk. Yeah. He's like, yeah, my wife, that would happen to my wife. They were physically powerful with incredible strength and endurance, but they also had spiritual powers that regular humans did not possess. They were great hypnotists. Just like how we're talking about with the horses getting hypnotized, the dogs getting hypnotized. They were ventriloquists. So they'd mimic voices in birds. And it said that Sts'ailes could mimic any and every bird in the Pacific Northwest.
That's cool.
Yeah. They were able to throw their voices over insane distances too. And they were said to have a keen sense of humor, quote unquote. They were known to pull pranks on the natives. They were very deliberate in their pranks, I guess we could say, like very premeditated in their pranks. So they were messing around with their horses, dogs, possessions, and more. In general, they were considered to be harmless as long as nobody fucked with them. And regardless of their mischief, they were best ignored and avoided. However, they were totally capable of being extremely dangerous. So according to oral history, before European contact, a conflict between the Klallam and the Sts'ailes resulted in a massacre. For reasons unknown, a young Sts'ailes man was killed by a few members of a Klallam village. And in retaliation, the Sts'ailes slaughtered the entire village responsible for his murder.
Yeah.
To quote George Totsky, he would say, the Sts'ailes destroyed an entire branch of the Klallam tribe. They left only one man alive in order to carry a message. The Sts'ailes spoke to the survivor in the strange tongue of the Klallam, a language which originated from the Old Bear tongue. And they told him to run to the nearest village and warn the others. The massacre was the consequence of their son's murder. Should also be said that the Sts'ailes were no strangers to forcefully abducting Native women to take as wives, as well as small children and babies to raise as their own. However, the Klallam had peaceful contact with the Sts'ailes as well. A Klallam man named Henry Napoleon had an encounter in 1895 while visiting British Columbia. While hunting, he came face to face with a Sts'ailes man. He was afraid and knew they were dangerous, but the Sts'ailes man was cautious, calm, and kind to him. He spoke Henry's language, which is specifically not known, but the Sts'ailes invited Henry to follow him back to his home, and Henry was led to a hidden cave in the deep wilderness of Vancouver Island. He said the Sts'ailes man was a very friendly and courteous host.
Okay, that's good.
The two just hung out for a bit, and the Sts'ailes man shared secrets with him. And the man told Henry about their hypnotism powers. Then he showed off his ventriloquism and mimicked the hooting of an owl. And he also showed him some sort of Sts'ailes medicine, which specifically was a topical substance which made them invisible.
Whoa.
Yeah. Eventually, the Sts'ailes man ended their chill session. And Henry returned home and told of his peaceful experience with the Sts'ailes man.
Right on.
Yeah.
That was a good time.
Yeah. Henry Napoleon was lucky to have had a nice visit with the Sts'ailes man because most who had come that close with the Sts'ailes would usually never be seen again. So not long after Henry Napoleon's experience, the Sts'ailes disappeared, and the Klallam believed they had finally gone extinct. However, in 1920, two men fishing in the Quinault River came into contact with a few Sts'ailes men. Fred Pope, who was Quinault, and George Heisman,
I think Heisman,
who was Satsop, caught a bunch of steelhead in their little boat. And on shore, they were confronted by a group of Sts'ailes men. And so they forfeited their fish and left it in their canoe and took off. And the Sts'ailes took all their fish and fucked off into the woods.
Dude.
Yeah. So now they're intimidating, which is kind of crazy because they're yeah, they're not around anymore. We don't see them or hear them or anything. And then they're like on the shore, like T-posing. Like they're already ginormous. And they're like T-posing like, "Ah," like that.
And people are just like that gesture where they like pull their collar when they're lying, you know? I haven't seen anything.
Literally. So only 4 years later, the white prospectors would be attacked by apes at Mount St. Helens. And George Totsky concluded in his article, quote, "When the Indian was changing from animal to man, the Sts'ailes did not fully absorb their tamanawes, and thus they became an anomaly." And tamanawes means soul, spirit, or human life. He continues, "The Indians of the Northwest have kept the existence of the Sts'ailes a secret, partly because they know no white man would believe them. The Indian, known for his honesty and truthfulness, does not like to be called a liar."
Very fair.
Yeah.
There is a tribe in British Columbia who recognizes Sasquatch as a figure that is deeply rooted in their own significance. This is the Sts'ailes Tribe, their name meaning beating heart. They preside in and around the Harrison River Valley east of Vancouver. Just like all the other tribes in the Pacific Northwest, Sasquatch has been part of Sts'ailes culture for centuries. The modern word Sasquatch derived from the Sts'ailes word Sasquatch, which means hairy man in the Upper River dialect. Like the others, Sasquatch is a big, hairy human face thing, but their form is not finite. They're sometimes referred to as a slalacum, which means shapeshifter. They can be anything and can change whenever they want. The Sasquatch are watchers and protectors.
Dark watchers.
Oh. Watching darkly in the land. Watchers and protectors of the land. However, at one point in time, the Sasquatch were considered to be just another tribe of natives, of course. According to Sts'ailes tradition, there was a time when the Sasquatch lived in great numbers. They were actually split between two tribes. The two tribes were said to be in constant conflict with one another. The Sts'ailes were also in conflict with them periodically. Everybody was fighting everybody. Over time, the Sasquatch numbers dwindled between the two Sasquatch tribes. The remaining Sasquatch fled the valley and moved up into the mountains. It's believed that the Sasquatch inhabit the general vicinity of Mount Morris, which is known as Mount Keenan today. Torches and large fires could be seen up the mountain at night. Sts'ailes knew that this was the remaining Sasquatch. Each summer, the Sasquatch would hold a sacred gathering on top of a nearby mountain. This unnamed mountain was larger than Mount Keenan. It's believed this mountain is most likely present-day Mount Davies. The peak of Mount Davies commands an incredible view of the vastness of the entire region, and from here the Sasquatch could watch over everything.
Dark watcher.
Dark watchers watching in the dark, though they have a torch.
Dun, dun, have a torch. Dun, dun, have a torch. Dun, dun, have a torch. Dun, dun, have a torch.
Up on the mountain.
Literally. So, how did Sasquatch become the cryptid it is today? Or at least, quote unquote, the cryptid. To put it simply, Sasquatch is the result of 100 years of appropriation. So let's go back to the beginning to understand how that started. The first Anglo, I was using Anglo sometimes in this document. I think one of my sources was using Anglo and I was like, nice.
Ah, yes, the angler.
Oh, yes, the angler. So the first white person or Anglo person to expose Sasquatch to the non-natives of the region was a man named J.W. Burns. He was the still smoking cigarette butt that started the wildfire of it all. So who was he? Some consider him to be an anthropologist, but he wasn't. He was an Indian agent, meaning the government hired him to work on the reservation. In the 1920s, he was assigned to be a school teacher at the Sts'ailes Reservation, and Burns became familiar with the legend of Sasquatch while there. A few vague stories of native encounters were heard through the grapevine, and he found the figure to be very peculiar yet amazing. So he sought more true stories. And at first, the Sts'ailes were not trusting. Whites did not understand Indigenous culture, and they also didn't want to. This was a time of forced assimilation. Speaking of things like Sasquatch was punishable. Speaking their own language was punishable. Mm-hmm. So he kept kind of prying. After gaining their trust, a few Sts'ailes came forward to share their experiences. And he documented these testimonies in detail. And without hesitation, he shared them with the outside world. He submitted his writings to Maclean's magazine, and the first publication was released in 1929, titled BC's Hairy Giants, a collection of strange tales about the British Columbia's wild men, as told by those who say they have seen him. Quote, "Are the vast mountain solitudes of British Columbia, of which very few have been so far explored, populated by a hairy race of giant men, not ape-like men?"
Oh.
So Burns would publicly say that he believed all the Sts'ailes testimonies to be true, and throughout his living and teaching on the reservation, he found them to be uninterested in entertaining outsiders. He'd say, "The Sts'ailes are by no means unintelligent, nor are they prone to unreasonable or imaginative lying." And just to note, since Sasquatch's debut, many have considered the legend of Bigfoot to be nothing more than an entertaining campfire story made up by Indigenous people of the Pacific Northwest. That is a perspective rooted in ethno-arrogance, because Indigenous oral tradition is not equivalent to campfire stories, like we've stated before. It's not accurate to assume that Bigfoot or Sasquatch was to entertain whites or to trick them. This was actually a punishable time for talking about things like this. It's just stupid. So that being said, just because J.W. Burns defended the Sts'ailes does not mean he's the hero of this story, because he did steal the Sts'ailes Sasquatch, and it benefited him greatly. Depending on your sources, Burns was either gifted or forcefully stole a traditional Sasquatch mask from the Sts'ailes, and then he traveled the country with it on display for profit, just the same as the
Crowbar.
Crowbar with the giants. So, yes, during this time, he happily anglicized and sensationalized Sasquatch. His publication in Maclean's, and many more to follow, gave him notoriety and rewarded him monetarily. However, many of these stories could have been lost to time without his documentation. So it's a bittersweet truth that is so fucking frustrating, but will be very important later in this episode. But right now, we have addressed the J.W. Burns call out. So let's just tell some stories from the Sts'ailes Tribe and the Salish people.
Our first story comes from a Salish man named Peter Williams. His encounter was printed in the first publication of Maclean's magazine. His experience occurred 20 years before, in the month of May, around 1909 or 1910. Peter was hunting alone in the woods on this day. He was a mile outside of the reservation, walking along the base of the mountain, when he heard a grunt. When he looked, he saw a bear crouched upon a boulder.
Oh.
Never a great thing. It was only 30 feet away.
Yeah.
He froze. He raised his rifle, and the bear stood up and looked toward him. He realized immediately it was not a bear. It was a giant hairy man. Over 6 feet tall and angry as heck. The creature turned to him and let out a piercing yell. Just like that. Church, shut up. Chart, you deserve this chart. The hairy man leapt from the boulder after Peter. Fucking, he's like, you.
Fuck.
Jumps after him. Peter's words were, "I fled, but not before I felt his breath upon my cheek." Terrifying.
So scary. He's all, he's like, fuck.
He ran as fast as possible towards his home by the Sts'ailes River. Traversing the rugged wooded area, he was slower than the beast was. Over his shoulder, the beast was overtaking him.
Fuck.
And Peter made it to the Sts'ailes River, and he made his way over the bank in his canoe. But looking back, the hairy man waded the water easily.
He's like, fuck it.
I cannot get away.
He thought he was going to be able to cross the river, and the guy was going to be like a fucking Nazgul. And he turned around and he was just like,
he's just swimming
like so fast.
Oh my God. So breathless, Peter did make it home to his wife and children, and he bolted the door and barricaded the whole house. And he waited with his rifle near the door, ready to shoot. And 20 minutes passed before Peter heard the beast approaching very fast.
And I'm sure he was like, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait to come get him.
Yeah, he was like, he's inside. I'm going to wait a second.
I'm going to wait to like build it up.
And then 20 minutes later, he's just like, brum, brum, brum.
He's like, it's time. I'm going to like...
Oh God. So through the crack in the door, Peter got a good look at it. And Peter would say, except that he was covered with hair and twice the bulk of the average man, there was nothing to distinguish him from the rest of us. So he just looks like a dude who's huge and hairy, like a human man, which is very scary to me.
Yeah.
And it began to It began to attack Peter's home. It pushed the house with so much power it actually shook back and forth.
Oh.
And he feared his house was going to collapse and kill his whole family in it.
Yeah.
He told his wife to hide under the bed with their children. I don't know if that's very safe, but they hid inside, and Peter was ready to fire if it broke through the door or the windows or anything, but it never did, which is strange because it was obviously able to. Like, it's obviously very strong. It can rock a house back and forth, but it prowled around the house, grunting and huffing, and then it left. Yeah, it's like mad. It's like, why aren't you coming out?
Like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's shaking your head no. Hey, I'm trying to paint a picture. But for real,
I don't know if sound effects are needed for the picture.
But for real though, he could have destroyed the house and eaten him or done whatever, and he just was doing it, I think, to scare him.
Yeah, sounds like.
Maybe.
But yeah, he left eventually. The family stayed in their home for the rest of the night. And then...
No, they went outside.
They immediately ran outside to confront him.
They went out camping in the woods.
The next morning, he found his house to be in total disrepair. He found dozens of prints left behind by the creature, imprinted deeply in the mud. They were no different than a man's foot, but they were the biggest Peter had ever seen in his life. 22 inches, but very narrow. The following winter, Peter had his second encounter. He was duck hunting alone on the north side of the reserve called the Prairie. Suddenly, a beast approached him, huffing and puffing. And Peter ran for his life once more.
Could you imagine your luck?
Just twice.
Yeah.
Something chasing you, and you're like, fuck! Again!
Literally.
But this time, it didn't chase him for long. After 300, 400 yards, the beast gave up and ran back towards the woods, so...
He's like, I got in trouble the last time I did this!
Yeah. Peter went to the village elders and reported his close encounter immediately, but they didn't give his story much thought. They actually asked Peter to not speak of it again. Later that afternoon, another Salish man named Paul was chased by the same creature. He was net fishing at the creek alone, and the beast appeared suddenly and immediately charged him. Paul ran for his life. He had no gun, so no protection. He was almost to his shack when the beast gave up. He fell into the snow, totally exhausted and in shock. And his family found him and they had to carry him home.
Could you imagine, though, being fucking chased by a Sasquatch? I would literally...
Without any weapon or anything.
My heart would literally stop.
My heart would explode out of my body.
Yeah.
The following spring, Peter Williams had a third encounter.
Jesus Christ!
He learned his lesson and he went hunting with a friend and not by himself. He was walking along the base of the mountain, the same place as the first encounter. And Peter would say, quote, "On this third occasion, we ran into two of these giants. They were sitting on the ground. At first, we thought they were old tree stumps."
Interesting. Slollicum?
Could be. But once we were within 50 feet or so, they suddenly stood up and we came to an immediate stop. Both were nude. We were close enough. We were close enough to know they were man and woman. The woman was smaller of the two, but neither of them as big or fierce looking as the gent that chased me. We ran home, but they didn't follow us.
Maybe they were like teens.
Could be. They're on a date.
Yeah. Not as big as the other one. Yeah. Like, no shit.
I like that he calls him the gent.
Yeah.
Like,
it's kind of nice.
That old chap. That old fellow. A few weeks later, Peter and his wife would have an encounter with the same familiar fierce giant they knew too well. They were fishing on the Harrison River in a canoe when they spotted the hairy man. The giant was standing on the beach, 100 feet or so away. They watched him for a long time, but the giant paid them no mind. Peter's quoted to say, "That was the last time I saw him." Peter Williams would end his testimony remarking that his father and the elders were well aware of the wild men. He explained they lived up in the mountains, making their homes in caves. And Peter made one thing crystal clear: these hairy giants were not related to the Indian in any way. He's quoted to say that.
He said, no?
He's like, no, this is a totally different thing, and it keeps chasing me.
He's like, it might look like a man, but it's not. This next story is from a native man of an unknown age, I think a young man. And he's only mentioned by the pseudonym Point. And he had seen a Sasquatch only 2 years earlier while walking with his girlfriend, Adeline, at the annual hop picking picnic event held in Agassiz. Hop picking picnic? That's hard to say. The young native couple went to pick berries in the nearby orchard, and that is where they saw the hairy giant. Yeah, they went to go pick berries.
What are you implying?
I think they were kissing.
Ew. Oh my God.
Quote, this happened near the close of September 1927 when we were having a feast. Adeline August and myself walked to her father's orchard, maybe 4 miles from the hop fields. We were walking on the railroad track and within a short distance of the orchard when Adeline noticed something walking along the track coming toward us. I looked up but paid no attention to it, as I thought it was some person on the way to Agassiz. But as he came closer, we noticed that his appearance was very odd. He kept toward us closer with an easy gait, and we stood still and were astonished, seeing he was a creature, naked and covered with hair like an animal. We were almost paralyzed from fear. I picked up 2 stones, which I intended to hit him if he attempted to molest us. But within 50 feet or so, he stood and looked at us. Note, the word molest had no connotation of anything sexual pre-1950s. It originally meant to cause trouble or grief, because I was worried that maybe he meant molest.
No, to bother.
Yeah, no fondling happening. So we continue. He was twice as big as the average man, with hands so low they touched the ground. It seemed to me that his eyes were very large, and the lower part of his nose was wide and spread over the greater part of his face, which gave the creature such a frightful appearance that I ran away as fast as I could. Adeline had fled before I left. After a minute or two, I looked back and saw that he resumed his journey. Adeline had run away so fast that I did not overtake her until I was close to Agassiz, where we told the story of our adventure to the Indians who were still enjoying themselves. Adeline was so exhausted and badly frightened by the ordeal that she fainted. The old Indians who were present said, the wild man was no doubt a Sasquatch, a tribe of hairy people whom they claim have always lived in the mountains in tunnels and caves.
At least he wasn't chasing them.
Yeah.
Poor, what was that guy, Peter?
Peter.
Chase and chase and chase.
Yeah, for real. Literally. Peter was, I think,
harassed even.
He was like just super unlucky.
Yeah, I think wrong place, wrong time a lot of times. So by the 1940s, the Sasquatch craze was in full swing. People wanted to hunt down and catch the Sasquatch, especially quote-unquote academics. J.W. Burns would publish another story telling of a failed Sasquatch hunting expedition by a group of professors from University of California, Berkeley in 1942. These curious scientists and anthropologists contacted Burns, informing him of their plans to find the beast. They were not familiar with the region and needed guides. They attempted to have Burns, quote, recruit some of his Indians as guides and trail packers. Each were offered $10 a day, about $185 in today's money, for their aid. All of them refused. The Sts'ailes men declared their failure was definite. Without guides, the Americans embarked on the expedition anyways. In less than a fortnight, the group returned. They were gaunt, exhausted, and empty-handed. They declared that the route to the top of Mount Morris was utterly impassable. And they vowed, quote, as far as any white folk are concerned, there's no evidence of the wild man of British Columbia.
Okay, sis. You're just a fucking failure.
Yeah, sorry you suck. Like, other people can't get away from the guys.
Literally.
And you can't even go find them when you look for them?
Literally. Like, you're fucking failures. You're bitter. You're totally being crybaby fucking sore-ass losers. It's just because you're, like, pissed off because he didn't choose you.
It's because you're a bitch.
It's because
you're trying to hunt him.
It's because you're a fucking fake-ass, lame-ass, flat-ass, cracker-ass bitch.
Mm-hmm. The Californians left British Columbia, By the time they arrived back at the university, they were informed that a local Sts'ailes man had a close encounter with an angry Sasquatch only 2 days after their departure. Imagine fucking that. Stupid ass. The witness was an old man, simply referred to as Sts'ailes Philip. Philip claimed he'd seen Sasquatch many times as a young man. His recent encounter was the first in decades. The encounter was very unfriendly. He said it was so terrifying he thought he was going to die.
Oh, God.
It's speculated to have been caused by the strangers invading Mount Morris. Philip was fishing for trout in Morris Creek, gliding quietly along the stream very slowly. Without warning, a huge rock splashed into the water. It fell within less than a yard of his canoe, nearly swamping him.
That's fucking scary as fuck.
Yeah, like huge, like a fucking boulder ass.
Like
fucking,
if it had hit him.
Oh yeah, he would have been really hurt, or if it hit the boat, he would have been sunk.
Yeah, it could have like broken his legs. If it like fell on his legs, he would have
hit him in the head. He
drowned.
would have died.
Oh yeah, he would have been dead, crushed.
Yeah. Startled, of course, Philip glanced upward and observed a Sasquatch leaping down from a cliff. He was extremely quick, extremely agile, and huge. Under his arm was a small boulder.
He's like, I'm ready for. I'm coming. I have another one.
Yeah,
I'm fucking lock and loaded.
The rock that almost killed him, of course, was thrown by the Sasquatch, and it was totally intentional. Yeah. Obviously, he's like, I got another one, bitch.
Oh, yeah.
Once at a point of vantage, the giant deliberately slung the second boulder at Philip. Again, the rock missed the canoe only by inches.
He's like, don't make me throw another one, fucker. Poor Sts'ailes Philip is just an old man. He's like, oh no.
He's alone on his canoe just trying to fish.
Literally.
Poor guy. So yeah, Philip believed he was in grave danger, and he began to frantically paddle back down the creek. All of these stories is just you going.
I know. Well, think about it.
Yeah, I mean everyone in all of these situations on both sides are just going. They're all scared of each other and sad.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, so he was afraid the Sasquatch was going to follow him, and that it was going to jump into the water and attack him or drown him. But he did escape, and he told his story. J.W. Burns quickly caught wind, the fucking asshole, and he told the embarrassed Californians all about it. He's like, you guys were just here and you didn't find anything? Guess what? This happened like right after you left.
Yeah, like your presence really disturbed the vibe. And an old man almost died because of you. And don't you feel so fucking stupid that like Sasquatch would show himself to an old man and not you? Like he thinks an old man is hotter than you.
Oh, is that why?
He chose the old man over you.
Allegedly, an unnamed man would have a similar experience in the early 2000s, but his attack is assumed to have been the result of his greedy disrespect to the land. So good riddance. This man was fishing for trout in Morris Creek. He was fishing in a trout spawning bed. This is a huge taboo to most fishermen, not just in indigenous culture. All fishermen. Trout hang out to spawn in these pools. It's uneasy fair picking. It's, oh my God. It's unfair.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
It's unfair easy picking. It also affects the balance of fish populations, which is argued, but like, shut up.
Yeah, like people are like, it actually doesn't do anything to the fish population. And it's like, you have to go hang out in spawning beds to catch fish.
Why do you suck so bad?
Why do you suck at fishing?
It's like that
Riddle me this.
Fish in a barrel fucking analogy.
Yeah, or like throwing or like shining lights or shooting a gun into water to, it's like, just get better at fishing. Why do you have to hang out where they're fucking and live? Fucking stupid,
let them
bro.
do their shit.
Yeah.
So this asshole was fishing, and just like Philip, a huge rock nearly swamped his canoe, and he saw a Sasquatch coming after him, and he thought he was going to be attacked, and he fled, but he never returned, which is like, good.
Yeah.
Fucking good for you. You're not supposed to fucking be there.
Yeah. I don't think he was an indigenous person either.
Probably not.
The next story is by a man named Charlie Victor, and he would tell an amazing set of stories about his many run-ins with Sasquatch in his youth, including a very peculiar close encounter while on a hunting trip near Mount Morris. So his first encounter occurred when he was in his 20s, and this would have been around 1850 to 1860, a time in which he was famously known as the best hunter in the entire province.
Okay, Charlie.
Yeah, he's kind of like...
Like, not to brag, but I'm like kind of the known, like everyone knows me, like, as the best hunter in pretty much the entire province.
Wow.
I didn't want to, I don't usually tell people that, but since I figure someone will probably pull me aside and be like, you're the best hunter.
So in his testimony, he says, I'm so popular. I'm so cool. I know how to hunt. He is asked a question regarding his knowledge of the hairy men who inhabit the Salish region. And he would respond that he actually had a, quote, slight acquaintance with them. So this is Charlie's testimony about his first encounter. He would say, the strange people, of whom there are few now and rarely seen and seldom met, are known by the name Sasquatch, or the hairy mountain men, and some still live in the mountains around here. I have met them on several occasions. The first time I came to know about these people, I did not see anybody at all. 3 men and myself were picking salmon berries on the Rocky Mountain slope, some 5 or 6 miles from the town of Yale. In our search for berries, we stumbled upon a large opening in the side of the mountain. This discovery greatly surprised all of us, for we knew every foot of that mountain and never knew nor heard there was a cave in the vicinity. Outside the mouth of the cave was an enormous boulder. We peered into the cave, but couldn't see anything. We gathered some pitchwood, lighted it, and began to explore. Before we got very far from the entrance, we came upon a sort of stone house. It was a crude affair. We couldn't make a fair examination. Our pitchwood kept burning out. We left with the intent to return in a couple of days to go exploring. Old Indians to whom we told the story warned us to not venture near the cave again. It was the home of the Sasquatch. That was the first time I heard about the hairy men that inhabit the mountains. However, we disregarded the advice of the old men and sneaked off to explore the cave. To our disappointment, the boulder was rolled back into its mouth and was fitted so nicely that you might suppose it had been made for that purpose.
Sounds like it.
Sounds like they carved that door. And then you went into there and you're like, this house looks like shit.
Go in there.
Look at this stone house, looks like shit. Oh, it's a crude affair. Hey guys, look. This stone house.
Check out this crude affair. God.
Let's go set it on fire. Okay, so anyways, Charlie would go on to tell of the first time he ever saw one of these mountain men. This encounter occurred nearly 20 years after the cave discovery. He and a few other native men were bathing in a lake near Yale, naked.
Oof.
And while dressing, Charlie suddenly noticed a Sasquatch standing right next to him. He was standing less than 10 feet away behind a boulder.
Well, that's pretty close.
Dark Watcher. Watcher in the dark. He was totally nude and he was just quietly watching Charlie. Like so quiet. He's 10 feet away. Didn't even know he was there. Oh, kind of spooky. So Charlie would say, oh, he was a big man.
Is that the tone?
I don't know. Oh, he was a big man. He looked at me for a moment. His eyes were so kind looking that I was about to speak to him, but he turned around and walked into the forest. And 2 weeks later, my companion saw the giant, but he ran toward the mountain. So most of Charlie Victor's encounters were neutral, but there was one encounter which left him feeling scarred for life.
Oh.
This encounter occurred around 1915, and Charlie would say, the last time with these wicked people was not a happy meeting. I was hunting in the mountains near Hatsick, and I had my dog with me. This day, I came out on a plateau where there were several giant cedar trees. The dog rushed up to one of the trees and began to growl and bark. Looking up to see what had excited him, I noticed a large hole in the trunk about 7 feet from the ground. The dog pawed and jumped at the trunk. Looking around to me to raise him up, which I did. He dropped down inside the hole, and the next moment a muffled cry came from the hole. I said to myself, the dog is tearing into a bear, which is like, damn. You do be just dropping your dog into
A hole,
with a bear?
I guess.
I mean, I guess it might be like a little bear.
Maybe.
How big is a cedar tree?
How big is his dog?
Big, I'm sure.
I hope. Or else
Just-
he shouldn't be dropping his little fucking dachshund in the goddamn
I don't
hole in the
think-
tree.
I don't think he'd do that. I don't think he has
I
a
think he
dachshund.
would.
I think he probably has like a little like cute mutt dog, like,
Okay.
you know, or a hunting dog, maybe a lab, probably a lab or, well, those are duck dogs. I don't fucking know. So anyways, he said to himself, the dog is tearing into a bear. Holding my rifle at the ready, I called out to him to drive the animal out. A moment later, something shot out of that hole. I fired at what I thought to be a bear, and the creature fell to the ground. I looked at it, and then I felt sick. Murder! I shouted to myself. Actually, I should say that. Murder! Murder! Ah! I don't know. Murder! I shouted to myself in surprise. I shot what looked like a naked white boy, about 12 years old, with woolly black hair.
I feel like it's really weird to like accidentally shoot someone and then yell murder.
Well, I don't know. This is like 1915.
Is he like yelling it to alert people, I think, maybe?
I think he's saying it to himself. Like, murder! I don't know.
Okay.
Fucking, I don't
Go
know.
on.
I wasn't there. You were there. You were the boy.
I was the white boy.
So he goes on to say, he was bleeding from the bullet wound in his leg, sprawled upon the ground. He was like, I'm like imagining him like,
Family Guy dead pose.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, God. So, but when I stepped forward to examine the wound, he twisted away and let out a wild scream. It seemed as if he was appealing for help. From deep in the trees came a booming reply. Closer and closer came the voice, and every now and again, the wounded boy would cry out as if calling directions. Interesting.
We're talking to each other.
Yeah, they're like, "Ah, ah," and the other one's like, "Ah, ah." And Charlie's just standing there like, murder. God. So after half an hour of this,
He's so long.
he says, after half an hour, out of the forest came the strangest creature one could possibly see. It was a wild person, a wild woman. Her skin was as dark as mine. Her long, straight hair fell to her knees. She was about 6 feet tall, but her chest and shoulders were broad. She looked so big and strong that I'm sure if she laid hands on me, she would have broken every bone in my body. He's like, oh, you want to murder me?
Okay, mama. Murder!
Murder! Murder this pussy! It's funny. So in Charlie's testimony, he mentions that he had obviously seen several wild people before. However, he had never seen one so savage in appearance and in manner. He said that this one was different than the others. So he continues, when I saw her, I felt scared, and instinctively I lifted my rifle in case I had to defend myself. The wild woman ran toward the boy without fear. She bent over him. I was very afraid of her. In my time, and this is no boast, have in more than one emergency strangled a bear with my hands. I'm like the best hunter in the province, and I'm not boasting, but I've strangled bears with my own 2 hands.
One time I looked at a duck and it literally exploded, and then I looked again and it was like roasted and on a dish, like with
The little
like
like
a little
like the little chef hats on the feet.
yeah, and then
What are those called? I don't know.
little chef hats, and
Yeah,
then
sure.
and then like garnish. He had like parsley garnish and like a delicious butter sauce next to him. So like, I'm not boasting.
I'm not boasting.
I'm just saying like it was voted like the most delicious meal in the Pacific Northwest that year. But
Okay.
I don't want to.
Okay, Charlie. Okay, bro. Okay. I get it. So she ran towards the boy without fear. She bent over him and he was like, I'm going to piss my pants. Come and slam onto me, mommy. And I'm afraid of you. And I'm more afraid of you than I am of bears. So he says, then she turned to me savagely. Her expression demoniacal. That's what he says.
I've never heard that.
No, neither have I.
But all right, king.
Demoniacal. In the Douglas dialect, she growled, "You've hurt my friend." I explained in the same language, I am part Douglas myself. I had mistaken the boy for a bear and was very sorry for the accident. I pointed out that he was not badly hurt. She stood and began a sort of wild frisk or dance around the boy, chanting loudly. She screamed, Yahoo.com, Yahoo.com.
It says Yahoo, not Yahoo.com.
Yeah. She screamed, Yahoo, Yahoo.com. And from the distant wood came the same chanting troll. I saw in her hand was something that looked like a snake. It's like, where'd she get that from? Literally pulled it out of her butt crack. She pulled a ape man. She straight pulled the entire spray can out of her ass, but it was a snake. Can you imagine having a snake in between your cheeks?
No, that's terrible.
I know. I don't know where she got it from. So anyway, okay.
Her anus, dude.
Her anus. Or maybe she just made it appear. Maybe she was wearing a fanny pack.
Could be. It was like a hair-covered fanny pack, so it blends in.
Could be.
She's like, no one knows I got my purse right here.
She got long hair, so it could have just been...
It could have been in her hair.
Could have been in her hair. I don't know. So he said, I saw in her hand was something that looked like a snake, nearly 6 feet long. That is so long to be in her ass.
I agree.
Thinking over the matter, I believe it may have actually been animal intestine. Whatever it was, she struck it upon the ground over and over.
She's like whipping it.
Yeah, she's like fucking pissed. She's all, Yahoo, Yahoo. And he's like, okay, well, like, what do you want me to do? Like, where's the gag? Like, where's the cuffs? No, she's like cursing him, I think. So he goes on to say, she then picked up the boy with one hairy hand with as much ease as if he had been a wax doll, like he weighed nothing, and lifted him to her shoulder. She then looked at me with her black, defiant eyes and spoke to me once more. I remember her words. They still ring like a thunderstorm in my ears. She pointed the snake thing at me and said, Sasquatch, you'll never kill another bear. I dropped my rifle. I was paralyzed and overwhelmed by a strange exhaustion. Then she ran away with the boy into the trees. My brave dog, who never turned from any bear nor cougar, laid shivering and crying at my feet. I have no since killed another bear. I do not think the boy belonged to the savage woman because he was white-skinned. She called him her friend. No, she must have stolen him as a baby or had run across him in some other way. Indians have always known that wild men lived in the distant mountains. It is my own opinion, since I met that wild woman 15 years ago, that because she spoke the Douglas tongue, these creatures must be related to the Indian, which is a very different opinion than what Paul had. So just to be totally clear, he says that she spoke to him in the Douglas dialect, and he is referencing to the Hadza band specifically, because Charlie Victor is Hadza, which is from the northern Harrison Lake area and Port Douglas Reserve. Port Douglas is less than 50 miles away from the Mount Morris region, so incredibly close. So she calls him Sasquatch, and it's a word from Chinook jargon, and it's derived from the French word sauvage, meaning wild. And Sasquatch has two meanings, basically. The first one is to camp without a tent or wild camping, and the other is a derogatory slur for an Indigenous person. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
That she would call him that.
Yeah.
Like, and also have that knowledge and also know that specific dialect, but not that close to the Port Douglas Reserve. It's interesting that she would call him Siwash, maybe like he's from that region. There is a river that flows near Yale as well, and that's called the Siwash River. And it's not far from Harrison Lake.
Could be coincidental, but
Could be. It's just really compelling that she's like being racist. Or would say something like that when like he says that like this is not like the other Sasquatch that he's seen. He didn't even consider her to be Sasquatch. He considered her to be something completely different. And I think it's also really interesting when you take into consideration that the Sts'ailes talk about how the Sasquatch were split into two groups of people. There were two separate tribes, two different groups of people who were at war. And then there's like these examples of two different types of Sasquatch, ones that are peaceful and then ones that are like racist. So I just think it's fascinating that she looks so much different than the others that are reported. She speaks the specific dialect. She knows jargon, like Chinook jargon. Where did the boy come from? Who is he?
maybe her ass,
Maybe her ass.
where she pulled that intestine out of.
Right? I don't know. Maybe, I don't know if she stole him. I think maybe she found him. Maybe they were like brother and sister too. Like, or they just knew.
Do you think he's albino?
No, because he says that he's a white boy and he definitely wasn't a Sasquatch. But then also like the weird thing with the snake intestine and the chanting and stuff like that. Like that seems really crazy. I've never heard anything else like that. But, and also she was like, you'll never kill another bear. And he never
And then
did.
he didn't. Yeah.
I mean, he's very specific. He's like, I've had run-ins with other Sasquatch that are like me, that are like us. And she wasn't. She was diff.
She div. She's special. I can fix her. She can fix me.
She's like straight racist towards me, and it's like crazy.
He's like, I love this.
I am obsessed with her.
She called me a slur, and I'm pretty sure she could break every bone in my body. And like, I don't want to brag, but like, I think she's gonna kill me. Like,
Power. She would just like grab like the sides of his head and just like, I just
like squeeze his head like a grape.
yeah.
That's called love, buddy. He said, I will do anything for you, Mamacita.
Yeah, literally. So I honestly don't know, but it's interesting that this story would show up in like in the 1920s directly from a Douglas man. Fucking crazy. Yahoo.com.
Yahoo.com.
Yahoo.com. What is it? It goes. It's like, what was the old Yahoo commercial?
Yahoo.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah.
I don't think she was yodeling, but
That'd be funny if she was though.
Damn.
And like cracking the intestine whip.
Oh my
You're just like,
God.
oh, why am I so hard?
oh my god, oh my god. Oh fuck.
Don't look, child. Don't look.
He's like,
Hide your eyes.
everyone's like,
Constantly.
Yeah.
Every character in every episode so far.
shut
You're
up,
making them do
Chert. Shut
it. You
up.
deserve this, Chert.
Is it weird to start calling people Chert?
Be like, what's up, Chert? You can start calling people Kane too.
Oh, you're fucking Chert. You're fucking, oh, you have potatoes and carrots and nobody likes potatoes and carrots. Everybody likes meat. You fucking loser ass fucking vegetarian.
What?
You know, because Cain was like veggies. He gave veggies to God and
Oh, I don't know shit about those
Abel.
guys.
Oh, yeah, Cain and Abel. Abel.
I mean, I know who they are, but like, I don't know what they did.
Abel,
Besides
like-
one killed the other.
Abel offered like meat to God, I guess, the golden idol, Christ, God, and Cain offered vegetables because he was a farmer.
Pussy.
And so he like got really, really jealous because God loved Abel more. And so Cain killed Abel. And because of that sin, he had to wander. He like made the human race, I think.
I'm trying to find this video that my friend showed me.
Of Chart?
It's a Cain and Abel something. It's like from a video game, and one of them attacks the other one. He's like, bah, bah. It's really funny. Every time they watch it, they laugh, and it's a joy.
I love that.
Oh my god, am I gonna have to message them and be like, hey, can you send me that Cain and Abel fucking video?
It sounds amazing.
Please remain on the line.
Is it this one? I think it is. Let me look. Yeah, it is.
I'm sorry, it's a savage fucking world, I know it is. Do you have any final words? I'll make it quick.
Have you ever, this is from Rust, and Rust is the stupidest fucking, like, ugh, it's terrible. It's terrible. Hold on, my fucking arm stand is going crazy. Okay, so Chert, we're gonna start calling people Chert.
And then they're gonna make this noise.
I'm sorry, it's a savage fucking world, I know it is. Do you have any final words? I'll make it quick.
He throws the rock up in the air.
Just falls on him in the stomach.
So anyways, thank you guys so much for listening to part 3 of Sasquatch, Legend of Sasquatch.
Sasquatch Palooza. Almost over.
Sasquatch Palooza. And I'm very sad about that, honestly.
It's a great series.
It is. I really feel like it's been a good series, and, we're all about Indigenous Heritage Month. This has been the 3rd week. 4th week is coming. Next week is Thanksgiving. Fuck Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Literally. We don't give a shit about Thanksgiving. You know what I'm going to do? Take the day off.
Oh, you know what I'm going to do? Work as many hours as possible.
Literally. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll catch you next week for our final part of The Legend of Sasquatch. It's going to be a continuation of the Sts'ailes Sasquatch experience. Mm-hmm. So it's going to get a little heavy. It's going to get a little intense. More stories, more history. It's really going to be, I think, an amazing end to the series. It's been such a pleasure and a straight up honor to do this series, especially with you. And we've just been doing it. That's all I got to say about that. It's a little hot in here.
It is a little bit hot, but we're going to go outside soon.
Yeah, I think that we're going to go outside and I'm going to
go to the back porch and see if there's any baby Sasquatches.
Jumping?
Yeah, and then I'm going to jump at them. And then I look out in the distance and there's T-posing big Sasquatches. And I was like, oh.
They're like, give us your fucking fish, you stupid bitch.
I don't have any. I don't have any.
They're like, you're lying. Chert.
They calling me a chert?
Mm-hmm. Not a chert. They're just calling you chert. I'm going to be in my car and one's going to press its face up against my window like fucking,
yeah.
Like the, what? Twilight Zone?
The Who.
The Who. Anyways, sending all my love to my Cherts and Abels.
My Cherts and Abels. No love for Cherts.
No love for Cherts. No love for Abels.
Drama.
Shut
up, Chert.
I am.
But thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank you for listening. I don't know if this went off the rails. I don't know.
It's all right.
We don't need an outro, really.
Because you're going to go straight into the next one next week.
Yeah, you're going to go straight into the next one. You're not going to think about it. You're just going to do it.
We'll catch you then.
We'll catch you next week. Sending all of our love from Radio Grave. And don't be a chert, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Go cry somewhere else.
Jesus. Bye.
Bye.
At 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, multiple unidentified objects were confirmed to have entered Earth's atmosphere. It is speculated that these objects are of extraterrestrial origin. The broadcast will quiet at this time for your safety. Continue to carry out the following instructions.
Radio Grave Podcast is hosted by Amber Byland and Dominique Makasuya. Music courtesy of AOA Music, Carl Casey at Whitebat Audio, and intro music by Simon Big Byland. Audio mixing and editing by Amber Byland, logo and original art by Dominique Makasuya. Special thanks to Selma and Obi Henneke, Austin Smith, and all our supporters on Patreon. All other media and sound clips used are protected under fair use and are for the purpose of criticism, commentary, news reporting, education, and research. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.